Good afternoon. Welcome everyone to our third webinar in our series today by Abhyas. My name is Priya. Our topic today is rebranding ourselves for a better world tomorrow. For those who are just arriving, I'd just like to ask you to feel free to use the chat and let us know, where are you dialing in from? Where in the world are you joining in on this lovely webinar? So our theme for today is this session deepens our awareness of key global challenges, including environmental sustainability and inclusivity. Social responsibility begins from within us, shaping the positive change that impacts all our future generations. And these webinars that we are running, they are designed to bring a community together of like-minded individuals to expand their awareness of topics set by Abhyas. However, these webinars are not designed to provide solutions to participants. The vision for Abhyas, through the application of experiential knowledge, Abhyas envisions a paradigm shift in society's perspective, equipping it with the ability to face the challenge as it is. And Abhyas is committed to equip the individuals with equal opportunities by providing professional training to impart the courses on mental well-being, creating a better future for themselves and for humanity at large. Our founder says, all transformations have one thing in common: the turnaround in the perspective on what they have been through. So for our webinar today, I'd like to encourage everyone to use the chat as often as you can. Please place your comments in there. I'd like to welcome newcomers who are coming into this webinar for the first time. And all throughout the webinar, please feel free to put your questions in as well. We have our chat being moderated, and towards the final part of our webinar, I will definitely be reading out those questions for our lovely panel members to contribute responses to. So I'd like to now introduce our panel members today. Today with us, we have Tony Lee Luen. He is a sustainability leader, social impact advocate, and mindfulness practitioner, committed to co-creating a happier, more sustainable and inclusive world. As senior partner at Ecosys and founding chairperson of the Green Building Council of Mauritius, he champions a vision where sustainability is not only about the environment, but also about enhancing the well-being of people and communities. Driven by his passion for social impact, Tony founded Tanzadev, a venture builder dedicated to helping NGOs and social enterprises scale their impact. With a holistic leadership approach, he empowers individuals and organizations to make conscious, purpose-driven decisions that foster both personal growth and collective well-being. Welcome, Tony. We're really glad to have you on board today. Our next speaker for today is Yegane Asadian. MSc PAG is a passionate leader in environmental sustainability, climate action, and Indigenous rights advocacy with over 15 years of experience. Yegane has pioneered initiatives that blend science, policy, and Indigenous knowledge to help create inclusive, sustainable communities. Her work is rooted in a deep respect for the land, ensuring that environmental solutions are effective, culturally sensitive, and mindful of ancestral wisdom. Yegane's leadership is deeply enriched by her dedication to personal growth through yoga. With multiple teacher training certifications, she seamlessly incorporates mindfulness into her professional journey, fostering clarity, empathy, and purposeful action. This holistic approach allows her to lead with profound compassion, honoring both the people she serves and the planet she strives to protect. Welcome, Yaganu. Thank you for joining us today. Our next speaker for today is Zoe Rotzar. Zoe is a researcher and system designer specializing in education, cultural formation, transformation, and transition. With a multidisciplinary background in archaeology, applied social research, permaculture, corporate leadership, and clinical sexology, she bridges theory and practice as a facilitator and mentor. She focuses on emotional and physical decompression, rehabilitation, and re-education in both private and corporate spaces, working one-on-one with couples, groups, and workplace teams. Zoe develops custom programs upon request and thrives in collaboration, championing connection, vitality, and love in the face of inevitable change. She runs a private practice and leads the Institute Bon Pasteur. Welcome, Zoe. Thanks for joining us. Our final speaker for today is Ala Kozireba. Ala's leadership well-being journey is highlighted by her role at Abhyas, where she conducts conscious leadership courses for organizational leaders, focusing on gaining clarity, stress management, and emotional resilience. She also provides one-on-one conscious practices and counseling, aiding leaders in cultivating a healthier work environment. Additionally, Ala designs and facilitates awareness sessions, corporate training materials, and train the trainer courses, promoting leadership development in diverse settings. Thanks for joining us today, Ala. Well, that is our amazing introduction of our panel members today. Before we dive into our panel discussion, I have a question for you, dear audience. So feel free to use the chat once I ask this question. So what is one thing that comes to your mind when I say the word environment? I'd just like to allow about a minute or two. Feel free to just pop in a word or two in the chat, what it means to you when I say the word environment. Survival, yes, absolutely. Encouraging others also to contribute their responses as well. An environment where persons or people can live happily. Absolutely, definitely. Very good response there. Thinking about the future generation, definitely. Environmental sustainability goals, absolutely. Thank you for that, Armila. Please continue to keep your comments and even your reflections coming as we move through the webinar today. Thank you. All right, so we've got Abhyas environment, so field, peace. We have cow service here. Really good responses there. Thank you for that. So we're now going to move into our panel discussion today. So we have 30 minutes for this particular discussion. And we have our panel members. We have 4 panel members today. And we have 3 questions. And I just want to request for each panel member to spend about 5 or 6 minutes per question. And of course, I will help with moderating the entire discussion part. So the first question is for my dear panel members is, how can we effectively address environmental issues and promote sustainability? So I'd like to hand over to Tony first to please share his thoughts on this question. Thanks, Tony.
Hello everyone. Hello, dear audience too. Thanks for having me on this panel. Very happy to be here. The question on environmental sustainability. Can you repeat the question, please, Priya?
I sure can. How can we effectively address environmental issues and promote sustainability?
Hmm. Yeah. I think if I think about it, I just think about the causes of the problems that we have, and that's very much linked to the way we treat the planet, the way we operate in this world, which is based on consuming, consumption, production, extraction. So I think for environmental sustainability, we need to be relooking at our patterns of consumption. And also, I think for me, I mean, I'm doing some research to see how actually, instead of people making money and doing businesses by extracting, dilapidating nature, etc., or our environment, to look at how actually, while you're doing good, you can actually earn money. So that you don't need to, for example, put out the next generation phone or next generation TV, so you can sell more and make more money. And I think, yeah, I think it's to tackle a bit of a root cause, which is linked, say, essentially to, the patterns of production and consumption, and basically capitalism. Thank you for the question.
Yes, thank you, Tony. That's absolutely right. I think it's very important that we be very mindful, be very thoughtful about the way we're consuming everything in the world that we live in today. Each of us have that significant footprint. Thanks, Tony. So same question. How can we effectively address environmental issues and promote sustainability? And I'd like to hand over to Yagane, please, to contribute. Thank
Well,
you.
thank you. Thank you so much for having me on this webinar. And I want to start by acknowledging that I'm privileged to work and reside on the ancestral, unceded territory of Musqueam people. And with that, I can say addressing environmental issues for me especially requires both systematic change and it requires individual action from policy and industry perspective. We need very strong regulations. We need investment in renewable energies. We need to incorporate sustainable practices within everything that we do, from our at home or from our work or from industry in general. But at an individual level, it starts with awareness and having that accountability. Without accountability, you can't have sustainability or promote it. Small actions like reducing waste, making sustainable choices, and also or advocating for social environmental justice. This can lead to a larger and collective impact, not within our communities, within our society, and in the entire world. For me, one of my passion and one of the things that I have studied and worked in the industry for is integrating Indigenous knowledge and stewardship practices because their knowledge, the traditional ecological knowledge, can guide more of a holistic and a long-term solution for our society.
Thank you, Yagane. Absolutely. I 100% agree. I myself am from Australia, and I would always, working in a policy environment, would always take a moment to acknowledge our traditional owners of our land, our First Nations people. And I absolutely agree with that point. Just want to echo again, we have such a deep connection here with our ancestors, and the more we can build that alignment with them, the more we can learn how to create a society that is more sustainable for all generations to come. So thank you for that, Yagane. Wonderful. So I'd next like to ask Zoe if she would be able to contribute as well to that question. I'm happy to repeat the question as well. So the question is, how can we effectively address environmental issues and promote sustainability?
Thank you, Priya, and thank you for having invited me here today. I want to start with if people could just put their hand on their heart and just breathe. You don't need to close your hand. Let's just have that connection and breathe. We're breathing the outer environment and bringing it into our inner environment. That's the first connection we often forget. Even as we're doing sustainability, we forget to enroot ourselves in that simple fact. If you want to release your hand now, it's okay. What I want to bring to the fore there is that there is a physical body that functions in a particular way. We have a heart beating, we have blood flowing, we have air flowing. We are very close to the elements before being close to cultural constructs that we are born into. Those cultural constructs or these ideas come from our generations and the way they interacted with the environment. And we seem to just take it on as a habit without questioning it. So Yogane, when you were talking about this individual action, there's the ontology of the self that we're very rarely asked to question. What this nature of being, what defines it? Is it something that I gave myself or that I'm just handed and I have to work with that? And that ontology comes into a philosophy of name, a framework in itself, which represents our educational system. And going back to what Tony and Yogane said as well, it's about this systemic embodiment. And so how our view of the cosmos, and I like to look back to Wade Davis here, who is an amazing anthropologist who goes around the world and shows how people live different ways of being and the translation of that. So when Tony is saying the relationship with consumerism, it's also, well, the consumerism, that perception of we in existence are the owners of existence or the owners of our environment, and we can extract from it as if we're going into a shop and we can buy stuff. So one of the things, how can we practice sustainability? How can we respond to environmental issues is beyond, even within an organization, which is quite delicate a situation there, is how do you help somebody be motivated and inspired to not just question their individuality, but be ready to drop it all together to recreate it? And that's a very difficult ask. And this is where I think a lot of transformation can happen for environmental good.
Very well said, Zoe. Absolutely. We do live in a society where we've inherited inherited different actions, activities, habits, whatever it might be. And to make real change within, it is really thinking about what we're dealing with right now, the environment we're in right now, what it's demanding of us. Absolutely. Beautifully said, Zoe. Thank you very much. Our next speaker we have is Allah. Happy to repeat the question for you there, Allah. How can we effectively address environmental issues and promote sustainability?
Thank you so much, Priya, and hello, everyone. Zoe, Yogane, Tony, everyone else who is joining us. It's so good to see you all. So environment actually doesn't need us. We need our environment for survival on this planet. So it is understanding that first, that we don't need to do favors for the environment. We need to understand that without the environment, we will not be able to survive ourselves. And so our actions then would be shaped, having that understanding, coming from that understanding. Just think about the air that we breathe right now. Think about the water that we drink, the food that we eat. Where does it come from? It comes from this earth, from this planet, right? So how long can we live without air? No more than 5 minutes, right? How long will we live without water? Nowadays, the water is polluted. The air is polluted. The food is full of chemicals, pesticides. We're eating that food. It lowers our immunity. Our immunity goes down. We know what happened during COVID-19 also, we couldn't take a breath. People died because they couldn't inhale anymore. So actually, if we understand that, just think about the trees, for example. The trees receive water from the rain. They receive sunlight also. They receive that moonlight. What is exactly our participation in it? Are we able to provide sunlight for the trees? Can we make the rain happen? Can we do that ourselves? It just happens already. So if we as human beings don't intervene and we just let our environment be as it is, and it will just thrive. Actually, nothing is needed from us if we don't intervene, if we don't destroy it, if we don't take from it in a way that depletes all the resources, because we are part of this nature. We are also part of it. So whatever actions I'm performing today, it also comes back to me, multiplied. And we see all the rubbish being thrown in our oceans, and the forests have been chopped down, and so many things happening like this. But if we realize that we are part of this existence, that we need the environment, we need to allow it to be how it is, because without us, things just happen by themselves. We don't have to do anything. The trees will grow, the animals will thrive there in their natural habitats, and things just happen naturally without us doing anything. So we as humans need to integrate ourselves into the environment and just learn how to live in the environment in a conscious way. The best thing we can do is plant the trees by the riverbank in a scientific way. The trees will take away a lot of pollution from water, and they attract the birds. When we hear the birds chirping, all our anxiety, all our depression, all our mental issues go away. We don't have to invent anything. We just appreciate what it is already there, and take care of it in the best way. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Ella. Absolutely. Just summarizing on this question, it is really about us being conscious of our actions and us really thinking about what are we contributing to the environment. As Allah very beautifully pointed out, the environment is thriving, but what can we do? So here at Abhyas, every 3 to 4 weeks, we host community gardening activities. So that is an opportunity. In fact, for those of you who are joining here from lovely Mauritius, it's a beautiful opportunity here for you to become more connected and grounded in nature. Come and plant something with us and come and see how we can contribute to nature, how we can make a difference for all generations that come, as well as for ourselves. I just want to mention a couple of really amazing points that have come through from the chat before I move on to the next question. So we've had messages coming in the chat that in Mauritius, we need initiatives for recycling, for example, waste reduction or apparel reduction. So we could have stores that have secondhand products, such as one of the stores mentioned here is Vinted. It's not a store I've been to, but definitely I know in Australia we have a lot of those kinds of stores where we do actually do clothes swaps, or we do secondhand selling of products, of clothing. So it's something that is not useful to us becomes a treasure to somebody else. So it is really being that contributor in that way. Second point is, as individuals, we need more grounding activities, especially at the grassroots level. So that's about starting right at schools, about encouraging children to be more environmentally friendly, be more environmentally conscious, and know how to live in alignment with this environment, as all of you have very aptly pointed out. And finally, it is about a mindset shift. That is what needs to be activated. So beautifully said, particularly that last point, because that is going to be a great segue for where we're heading, which is our second question today. What does inclusivity mean to you? And how can we actively foster it? Handing over to Tony first, please. Thanks, Tony.
Hi, thank you. I feel privileged also to be the only masculine energy on the panel. You have all the beautiful ladies in the panel and in the audience. Inclusivity for me, it's about people, obviously. It's for me when inclusivity always also related to equity. So basically, for everyone to be able to enjoy all the different things that life can offer. And that's something for me is inclusivity. Again, I think when we look at it, it's just the way the world is, where this like this big gap. To live in the world, we need money, and there's also this sort of disparity and disproportion in the how do you say that over different income, how income some people, I think only a few percent earns 80% of the wealth of the world. And that excludes actually people from society, from things, from housing, from material things. But the beauty, I think, when I heard Hala speaking, it's also, you know, if you're in the environment, you're in nature, so then, you know, it's available to everyone. And I think that's what's beautiful also. You know, once you can go to the beach, you know, that's available to everyone. Nature's available to everyone. So inclusivity, for me, it's also an objective. It's something that I work towards in my work, to try to include and to leave no one behind, as, you know, sustainable development goals are based on like leave no one behind. That's it for me. Thank you.
Thanks,
I don't
Tony.
you have a bird chirping. I put my thing on, I unmuted it while I was talking about the birds, because I just hear birds here chirping all the time.
That's beautiful. You're really tapping into that connection with nature then. That's really nice. Thank you. Yes, absolutely. As Tony very aptly pointed out, inclusivity is really about knowing and keeping whatever we create available to everybody to access. He mentioned a very, very good point about the um, inequality that exists in our world today. And that inequality seems to be defined by what we own, what we have, all of our material possessions. So definitely, how can we shift that into being more inclusive? And it's wonderful to see more and more people are adding wonderful comments in the chat. I want to shift over to that for a moment before I move to our next speaker. So we've got wonderful messages coming through, such as we need prana from nature. We need that life force from nature. The more connected we are to nature, the better it is. People were doing that back in the past, and I'm sure our ancestors were more connected to nature. So now is an opportunity for us to shift in that direction as well. Thank you. So for this question, I will like to hand over to Yugane, and I'll repeat the question as well for you, Yugane. What does inclusivity mean to you, and how can we actively foster it? Thank you.
Thank you, Priya. Tony, you're hearing birds. I'm hearing heavy rain in Vancouver. So that's the difference. For me, when I think about inclusivity, it means ensuring that all the voices, particularly those that were historically marginalized, are a part of the decision-making process. And I think I've seen that in my work, and I've seen how Indigenous-led conservation efforts bring that unique perspective that strengthen the work and the environmental stewardship, as they are the stewards of the land, the original stewards of the lands. For me, actively fostering inclusivity means moving beyond that performative gestures that we do, and it requires really deep listening to amplify the diverse voices and implementing that into the policies and creating equitable opportunities for everyone involved. You know, when I think about it, deeply, I just go back and see it also means recognizing unconscious biases that we have and working towards dismantling that, to dismantle the systematic barriers that we have in our institution and our organizations and our societies as a whole.
Thank you, Yvonne. Absolutely beautifully said. There's a real resonance with what you're saying. I myself have worked in Indigenous policy when I was in Australia, and I definitely do agree with what you're saying. It is very much about inclusivity, is deeply listening, putting aside our unconscious biases, being aware of those unconscious biases as well. Being careful about assumptions that we're making based on what we see in our past versus actually having a decent conversation and being able to capture and encapsulate all of the voices and the views that have been put on the table. That is important in policy, that is important in every aspect for whatever we are trying to progress here in this world today. And of course, for today's topic, for the environment and for the issues we are facing. Thanks, Yagane. I'd like to now hand over to Zoe, please. I'll ask the question one more time. So what does inclusivity mean to you, and how can we actively foster it? Thanks, Zoe.
So I always find this part a little bit delicate, because when I'm faced with an audience at work, for example, I know that everybody comes from deep-rooted belief system. So this is why I think I align with what Ala spoke about. Sometimes you have to transcend as well your culture. We all drink water. We all breathe the air. Flourishing is beyond human power. Flourishing just happens. We just happen to be part of the party. We're not the central player. And when we're talking about fostering inclusivity, it's also inviting that humility, that we are not the cause for water, air, soil, etc., that we look to the sources of what makes human life possible. If you're capable in your activities to invite everybody to do that equation, the reductivist equation of what does my life depend on in order to exist, then we'll always fall back on air, water, soil, access to sunlight, and the diversity of life. In the trophic cascades, we have to look at the predator, the grazer, everything that we see and we don't see. So make it as culturally unloaded as possible, just make it as factual as possible and bring it back to the geomedical attribute of the environment. And geomedicine, if you've not heard about it, or if you have, they call it, some people understand it as One Health or global health, but geomedicine is something that, for example, Esri uses to look at demography and health. So where you live and how your environment is industrialized and what activities will determine the chronic conditions, asthma, diabetes, or all these conditions. And when these organizations try to have a conversation with municipalities or with the structure of the system, there is always a resistance. So fostering inclusivity is giving the power back to the individual to ask the right questions, because the more we are asking the right questions, the more the system will actually start responding to the demand. Right now, the demand within the public is not strong enough because it is not conscious enough of this equation. So that will be enough for me, I think. I hope I'm not rambling too much.
No, Zoe, that's amazing. No, absolutely. I absolutely do agree with you there. It is really about going beyond our cultural beliefs and what we think we understand, and just moving back to the actual basic facts of what we need in order to survive in this world. So that's beautifully said, Zoe. Thank you. Thank you so much. So I'd now like to hand over to Ala, please. And the question again for you is, what does inclusivity mean to you, and how can we actively foster it? Thanks, Ala.
Thank you, Priya, and thank you everyone who spoke on these topics already, all amazing points, actually. So inclusivity, it's important to understand that the nature of our existence is not, cannot be devoid on whatever surrounds us. So I cannot exist without everything else that already exists in this world. I will not be able to exist then. So I'm part of this world, and the world is also part of me. So that understanding that I'm not, although it seems like I'm a separate entity. Okay, my name is Allah and I came from this country and these were my experiences. But at the same time, I'm also part of this world. I'm not separate from it. So this identity is just an identity that maybe is created, but at the same time, I'm part of all, and all is part of me. So if I'm looking at the world from that perspective, that everything here on this planet is part of me, all the creatures of this world, all the everything I see, everything only comes from this earth. Whatever technology we have right now, where does it come from? It didn't drop from the sky. It actually was created only from these elements, these 5 elements that we have, that comes from this earth. The buildings we're in, food waiting, everything, whatever surrounds us, our pets. If you look just around you where you are right now, and you look around you and you look at everything in your environment, you will realize that actually it seems like some separate objects are there, but at the same time, it all came from one object, or it all came from one source, I would say. So it seems separate, but at the same time, it's not. It's all one. So if I am conducting myself on a daily basis based on this understanding that everything around me is me, how would I conduct myself then? Would I be throwing rubbish in my own house? Would I go and throw beer bottles and would I pollute my own house? So if I can look at the earth as this is my home, there's nowhere else I'm living. I'm not living on Mars. No, I'm living on Venus. I'm living on planet Earth, right? I belong to this planet, and the planet belongs to me. So because of that, I would also treat it as my home anywhere I go. So how would my conduct be in that sense? And if that understanding is not there, and if I'm thinking that I'm just a separate entity, I will always just be grabbing from it and taking from it and not giving anything back, because I will just only want to meet my own needs and not care about anything around me or what happens next. So that perspective, that change of perspective is very important. What is my thought process? What is my understanding there? And then that everything is in abundance in this universe. So how come that right now some people are dying of hunger and some people have so much that they don't know what to do with all those resources? They just don't know what to do with it. How come? Because that understanding is not there. Yeah. So if we operate from that understanding that everything is abundance, everything, this whole universe is replete with abundance, and that is enough for everyone. You throw a seed in the soil and it will sprout and it will grow, and you can grow so much. The earth produces so many things for us that we can't take for granted like this. So it is about inclusivity. It's about just knowing that I am part of all and all is part of me, and just operating from that understanding on a daily basis.
Definitely. Thank you, Allah, for that point. I absolutely agree with that. And for me, ever since I'm very new to Mauritius, actually. I've only been here for 6 months, and being here has really allowed me to connect more with myself. If we look at the society we live in today, we're all kind of trapped in this hustle and bustle, and it's all about, what do I need? What do I need? But what kind of a contributor am I being? That is really the question. And that is the kind of mindset shift that's needed for inclusivity, as Allah very aptly pointed out, realizing that everything that is around me, this world, is a part of me and I'm a part of it. And when we have that mindset shift, the way we act, what we do, how we behave will completely change. So thanks for that, Allah. Moving on to our final question today in our discussion, which is how can we cultivate inner harmony and reconnect with our core values? Handing over to Tony first, please. Thanks, Tony.
Hi, I think I'll go last this time. Can we go around and maybe hear from Allah first and then we to the other way around? So the monkey's last this time.
No worries, no worries. I'll give Allah a break. I'll hand over to Yugane and Zoe, followed by Allah and then Tony. So Yugane, the question for you, please. How can we cultivate inner harmony and reconnect with our core values?
That's a really good question. You know, throughout the entire webinar, I've been hearing what is the environment? Like, how are we connected? So the environment is a delicate system with everything is connected. As Allah said, as Tony said, you know, as Zoe said, land, water, air, and all the living beings are connected. And when we disrupt this balance, what are the consequences? We see climate change, we see biodiversity loss, we see ecosystem degradation. So protecting the environment means restoring and maintaining that balance for future generations. And that's when inner harmony comes from. It comes from the alignment between our values, between our actions, and the impact that we wish to create. It requires self-awareness and continuous learning and moments of reflection of, hey, what are we doing? We are one, and this is our Mother Earth. We should be taking care of it. When I look at it, for me, spending time in nature, as I live in Vancouver, you know, you live in a city and you do the hustle and bustle every day, is the way that I reconnect and reminding myself of my responsibility and all of our responsibility as a whole to protect this world that we have around us. You know, practicing gratitude, having mindfulness and embracing it, and surrounding myself with a supportive communities that they have the same mindset as I do. It really plays an important role in maintaining that balance and keep myself accountable and responsible and going.
Thanks, Yugane. Absolutely. Very well said. That inner harmony comes from our own self-awareness. And of course, it is very connected. This question is very connected to the one we just asked, which is about realizing and having that mindset shift that we are a part of this world and the world is a part of us. So the more harmonious we can be within ourselves, the more we can actually play a more positive role in the environment that we live in. And very aptly said, Yugane, climate change is one of the biggest indicators of the imbalance that is occurring in this world today. And so we can really take a moment to look at, well, what imbalance is happening within us. Thanks, Yugane. Handing over to Zoe, please. The question, happy to say it for you as well.
Yeah.
How can we cultivate inner harmony and reconnect with our core values?
Firstly, it's recognizing that it's a privilege in itself to have the space to ask these questions and to take a moment to think about them. I've lived with a few tribes. I have lived with anarchists. I have lived with capitalists. I have lived with all sorts of people. And it's interesting that it's under a lot of pressure that a human being is willing to reconsider, what am I doing wrong? For some reason, something deeply uncomfortable needs to happen on a personal level for somebody to ask these questions. And in a corporate environment, you can't actually nudge people to the point where they just want to throw you out, because that's usually what's going to happen. So the inner harmony, it's accepting to see ourselves for what we are, our flaws, the shadow work that all of us like to run away from, deeply uncomfortable, and finding communities such as this one where it is okay to have flaws and it is okay to have skewed views, and rub with people who are going to give us a different view of, well, actually, if you face your fears now, if you face the parts of you that you've been avoiding now, or maybe tomorrow you'll have a brighter outlook and a deeper connection to this world. So how to cultivate in the self-awareness or in mindfulness, the whole action of meditation itself is allowing all the feelings we don't like to feel, all the thoughts we don't like to think, to come up, for us to observe them, understand their source, and stop identifying or creating a personality around this and detaching ourselves from the personality that is evolved from birth, and choosing a different behavior. And that behavior is enriched or flourishes thanks to information like we've been exposed to today, with the environment, with our relationship to water. Once upon a time, when I was a digger in archaeology, I was doing this piece of field work, and this community was sent to us to work, and there was so much dust coming up. And when we took a break, we were all given a banana, and I just ate this banana, and I was like, right, I'm thirsty, I'm gonna have some water. And this old man smacked me on my head and said, don't you understand, the banana is to take away all the dust from your esophagus and clear your air passage so that you don't get sick. I just looked at him and said, listen, in my head, I'm be reading from books. You obviously have a very different experience. So it's also being open-minded to hang out with people that are illiterate and that have a complete literacy of ecological knowledge, of practices that make us think outside the box, behave outside the box, and respect the fact that we're all different. And in that process is also realize that we're all the same as well, going back to what the panel has said today. So how to cultivate is, one, acknowledge that you're changeable, and two, that you are flawed, and three, that you are perfectible, and that it is okay to go through the darkness in an environment. You won't be shamed. There's so much shame, guilt, and all these things in society, creating these neutral spaces for people to open up and feel relaxed about it. It's so important. And that will develop inner harmony as a side effect of walking that path. Yeah.
Thank you, Zoe. Beautifully said. Absolutely. 100% agree. It is really working with that conflict within ourselves, facing every part of ourselves, the parts that we don't like, as you mentioned, the shadows, and knowing that every part of ourselves makes us as we are, and it is every part of ourselves that will take us closer to that state of inner harmony, connecting us with our core values. So thanks for that, Zoe. I'd next like to hand over to Allah, please. So the question is, how can we cultivate inner harmony and reconnect with our core values? Thanks, Allah.
Thank you, Priya. Before I answer the question, just want to say to Zoe, when I was in middle school, I wanted to be an archaeologist. I don't know why, but it just came up, and it's interesting now that we're on the panel and we're discussing these things. The memory came into my mind. Anyway, back to the question. So actually, as we start to transform ourselves, as we start to integrate ourselves as part of this cosmos, we start to take care of all the things that surround us. So can we just honor everything that surrounds us? If I look in front of me right now, I have these 4 beautiful plants in my room. Can I just take care of them in the best way that I can? If I can just respect everything around me, nurture it, take care of it, honor it, that it is there. It's these are natural resources. This plant is giving me oxygen that I'm breathing. And if it doesn't exist, I won't exist. So because of that only, can I honor it? Can I take care of it? And just like that, when I go everywhere, not just here in my room, but if I go anywhere, can I take care of everything in the same way? Just honoring and respecting it and treating it with that understanding that it is part of me. How would I behave myself? So to me, that's the value itself, to value our environment, to value all that surrounds us, all the resources that come to us. And it doesn't have to be only the flora and fauna. Everything. Can I live in harmony with everything that surrounds me? My dogs who are running around, can I be in harmony with those dogs? That are living creatures, yeah? They're part of this universe as well. Can I take care of them? Can I take care? When I say take care, I mean, can I respect them? At least don't hurt them. Yeah, at least I should not hurt them. So just like that, I should not hurt the environment. Honor it. That's all I have to say. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Ala. No, definitely. So I am conscious of time and I want to hand over to Tony. So Tony, over to you. The question is, how can we cultivate inner harmony and reconnect with our core values? Thanks, Tony.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks very much for the sharing. Very inspiring to hear. For me, I imagine it more to try to really be first connect with oneself. And that, I think, like Zoe also said, it's like peeling all these layers like an onion, reconnecting with shadow, working on on us, understanding all the baggage that we had, the wounds, etc., and deal with them to be able to get to the core, which is actually connected to everything. And I think there needs to be, I mean, for me, that's what I've done, is to work on myself, like psychotherapy, yeah, all of the things that happened in the past, to be able to reconnect with myself. And then I think meditation actually really helps also to reconnect with what is the core or the true essence, which actually connects us with everything else. And I think that's the beauty. And for me, inner harmony is to just feel one and at peace. And I think I do get that when I'm meditating, or yeah, when I feel like really in connection. And I think that's the most beautiful place, actually.
Thank you, Tony. No, beautifully said. I think it's absolutely very, very apt here to mention that inner harmony is working on ourselves, accepting everything within ourselves, and also being more respectful, which was very well said by Allah as well. Having a respect for everything that is around us, and knowing that everything is needed for us to exist, and we are needed as well, and we have an impact. Our existence has an impact on how everything functions in the world. So thank you so much for that. We have a few minutes left, and I really would love to welcome Rubina she's been bringing some wonderful, wonderful points in the chat. So I'd like to hand over to you, Rubina, to share your thoughts as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Priya and Abhyas. I'm very humbled by the panel present in front of me, so thank you for picking me. I was just making a few points. This is a subject I was connecting a lot with, and I would like to thank all the experts who have shared their knowledge. I totally agree with what Zoe said, that very often it's a discomfort that triggers change within us. And therefore, it's disheartening in a way that as humanity today, we've reached a point that we need a personal reason to care about our environment and about everything that goes on around us. If it doesn't affect me personally, it's not something I should care about. There is one thing that, we all often say that we're different. We define ourselves as, I am a Hindu, I'm a Catholic, I'm a German, I'm an American, but we are all heading in the same direction, back to source somewhere. And this is a notion that is being lost. And I feel that the education system, because we talked about systemic, has a major role to play here. Instead of fragmenting societies, it should rally societies around things that are uniting, that are similar, because otherwise we remain locked in boxes. And here my point would be to demystify the higher consciousness. Demystify it in the sense, the higher consciousness, and I have to say it, our rigid religious beliefs, for instance, they can be taking us into very, very different directions. However sensitive, I think it's something that needs to be addressed, because we see more and more a very divided world, because there is that fake sense of ownership. My country, my territory, my land, my God, my this and my that. It's the my. Therefore, we're evolving very much from an unhealthy ego, and we have left behind our healthy ego. And as a final point, what I've also noticed in the kind of work that I do as a trainer and coach, you ask people, all right, within 15 seconds or 10 seconds, what are your top three core values? And they're stuck, they're scratching their head. A lot of people don't even know the values that with which they're leading themselves through life. And that ungroundedness as well is probably as a result of that, because then you're literally swaying with the wind. Something blows you here, something blows you there, but you do not have a meaningfulness. There is a sort of lack of meaningfulness. So for me, these were the couple of points. A lot of them, of course, I think are very, very common, but this is how I sort of phrased it in my own words. Thank you for giving me a voice.
Thank you so much, Rubina. We're so honored for you to share your views today. Well, I just wanted to end by just mentioning that I'm very grateful to all of our amazing panel members here today who have shared your views. Being in this position to be a host means I am very lucky to be able to have the opportunity to broaden my perspective. And I do hope that all of our lovely audience who have joined us here today have thoroughly enjoyed the experience. And I'd like to just end on a couple of final points, which is just want to mention that this webinar today is proudly hosted by Abhyas under our Mental Health and Wellbeing Foundation of webinars that we have continuing for the next few months. If for those of you who have first time joining, please do check us out on LinkedIn. You'll see the QR code in the bottom right corner of the screen. We also have a YouTube channel where all of our webinars that we conduct are going to be recorded and available. So I've just thrown that link in there for you in the chat. Our next webinar is Unlocking a Competitive Edge in a Globalized World. Very excited about this one as well. Won't share what it's about. I want to keep you all guessing a little bit, spark some curiosity. But please do stay tuned on our social platforms, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, for more details about what's to come. And I'd just like to end on a final note by our founder, as he says, the highest peak of one's performance can only be achieved through synchronization of body and mind. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining. Wherever you are joining from, have a beautiful day or evening. My name is Priya, and thank you for attending our webinar today. Wishing you all the very best. Bye for now.